I heard his question before I saw his face. "Do you like the house I bought you?" he asked softly, eyes hopeful, hands shaking just a little. That was my hook. The moment everything split in half. I froze on the old porch of his home in Burlington, Vermont, still holding the grocery bags I brought for the weekend. The early autumn air smelled like pine and cold river water. I remember that part, because everything else in me went still. "What house?" I whispered. Grandpa's smile faltered. It was like watching a light bulb flicker. He stepped back as if the wind had shoved him. You didn't move in yet?" "Move into what?" I hadn't even moved out of my cramped studio in Albany, New York, where the radiator hissed at night like it was arguing with itself. I tried to laugh, like this was some misunderstanding. "Grandpa, I don't know what you're talking about." That's when he looked past me, toward the driveway, toward everything I couldn't yet see. His eyes didn't look confused anymore. They looked hurt. And that hurt would unravel my entire family. Because the next thing he said made my stomach drop so fast I thought I'd collapse. Before he spoke again, he steadied himself on the porch railing. "Your mom didn't tell you?" he asked quietly. I swear the world slowed. My mom. Of course the trail led back to her. But before I tell you everything, I should say this. I never expected to be the center of any family drama. I grew up quiet, observant, the kid who sat at the edge of the dinner table. The one who got told things last, or not at all. My mom, Janet, was the family micromanager. If something didn't go through her, it didn't happen. She had this way of smiling tightly, like she was holding in a better version of whatever you were saying. She wasn't cruel. Just controlling. And when control feels like love, you don't question it. But quitting my administrative job months earlier had shifted everything. Mom said it was irresponsible. My older sister, Melissa, called it typical. Dad didn't say much at all. They acted like I'd destroyed the family reputation because I wasn't grinning through burnout anymore. So I stayed quiet, worked part-time gigs, and tried not to rock the boat. Grandpa was the only one who told me, "You're allowed to want a life that fits you." He meant it. And apparently, he meant more than I knew. By the way, if you're still watching, tell me where you're listening from. It means a lot when strangers hear the parts my own family ignored. And if you're into stories like this, you can tap like or subscribe. It helps my voice reach someone who might need it. Anyway. That day on the porch, Grandpa looked at me with disbelief so sharp it felt like a slap. "I bought it in July," he said slowly. "Your mother and sister said you were thrilled." My hands went numb. Thrilled? They told him I knew? They lied? Something dark moved through my chest, not anger yet. Just confusion thick enough to choke on. "Grandpa," I said, "I haven't heard anything about a house." His eyes softened with something worse than hurt. He looked ashamed. And before I could say another word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. The key hung from his fingers, a brass little thing with a worn-down ridge. "This is the spare," he said. "You should have the original." I stared at it. Not because it glittered or meant something dramatic. But because I suddenly understood something ugly. My mother and sister didn't want me to have a house. Let me rewind. Growing up, I was the easy one. Melissa was the achiever, perfect grades, debate team, Ivy League grad. I was the creative kid who liked long walks and notebooks. I wasn't the family failure, I just wasn't the family trophy. But in a family that worshipped trophies, being anything less was a sin. When Melissa bought her first condo, the family threw a party. When I rented my first apartment, Mom said, "That's good for now." When Melissa got promoted to VP, Dad gave a speech. When I left my job for my mental health, Mom said, let's not talk about that at dinner. It didn't matter that Grandpa always pulled me aside afterward and whispered, you don't need to impress people who never learn to see you. But now it seemed he tried to give me something huge. A fresh start. Something stable. Something of my own. And two someones, didn't want that. I finally found my voice. Grandpa, can you tell me everything? From the beginning? He nodded, but before he spoke, he looked down the driveway again, his jaw tightening. We should sit inside, he muttered. Before they get here. Before who gets here? We went inside his cozy living room, the one with the old pinewood walls and the faded rug from the 90s. The afternoon light cut through the blinds in warm stripes. Grandpa sat slowly, like his bones carried more than age. Back in July, he began, I started worrying about you. I felt my throat close. Why? Because you sounded tired. Because you said you were scared of falling behind. Because no one else was helping you. He shook his head. So I started looking at small houses in Schenectady, near where you work. Something modest. Something you could build life from. I felt hot tears prick my eyes. I found one, he continued. Blue siding. Small yard. 2 bedrooms. Just enough. I blinked hard. And you bought it? For you, he said. Only you. My chest tightened. He'd done something huge, and I didn't even know. Grandpa wasn't rich, but he'd saved his whole life, military pension, part-time hardware store job, frugal living. He'd never splurged on himself. But he'd splurged on me. What happened? I whispered. He leaned back. I told your mother I wanted it to be a surprise. She offered to help with paperwork, inspections, all the things I'm not good at online. That tracked, Mom loved being the gatekeeper. She said she'd tell you in her own way. She said you were overworked. Sensitive. That she wanted to break the news gently. Gently? She'd told nothing. Grandpa continued, I asked a few weeks later if you'd moved in. She said yes. My stomach twisted so sharply I had to grip the armrest. And Melissa? I asked. He hesitated. She said you loved it. Said you called her crying with gratitude. I stared at him. I never called her. His hands tightened. I know that now. I took a shaky breath. Grandpa, where are the keys now? The real ones? His expression darkened in a way I'd never seen. Your mother has them. And she was on her way. Before I could even react, we heard tires on gravel. A car door slammed. Voices floated up the porch steps, familiar, sharp, urgent. Melissa. Mom. Dad. Mom called. Are you home? Grandpa exhaled. They knew you were visiting. Why? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The door swung open without knocking, typical for our family. Melissa stepped in first, perfectly put together in a beige coat and pointed boots. She glanced between us with a tight smile. Mom followed, her expression already tense. I thought you were coming tomorrow, she said to me, like she was evaluating a surprise inspection. I stood slowly. So, I said quietly, which of you wants to tell me about the house Grandpa bought me? The room went still. A single inhale. Then Mom lifted her chin. I don't know what he told you, but it's more complicated than you realize. Melissa folded her arms. We were handling things. I blinked. Handling, what? The gift meant for me? Mom's jaw flexed. She looked at Grandpa. Dad, we talked about this. She's not in a position to manage a home right now. The words hit me like cold water. Not in a position. Translation. Not successful enough. Not stable enough. Not worthy enough. Melissa added, it would have been irresponsible to dump property on her. She can barely keep up with her current bills. My hands shook. Not with fear, with something simmering deeper. Grandpa spoke before I could. I trusted you, he said to Mom. You told me she loved the house. Mom straightened. I told you what you needed to hear. You worry too much. Grandpa's voice cracked. You lied. And then Melissa muttered, almost under her breath, but loud enough for me to hear. She wasn't supposed to find out like this. There it was. The quiet humiliation line. The one that stings more than a shout. I turned to her. What does that mean? She paused, then smiled politely. Nothing you need to worry about. When Melissa said that, something snapped. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just, final. Grandpa, I said, keeping my voice steady, can you give me a minute alone with them? He hesitated, then nodded. He trusted me. And that trust meant everything. He left the room slowly. As soon as the door clicked shut, Mom exhaled sharply. Okay, she said. Let's be adults about this. The house is not yours. My vision blurred with disbelief. Excuse me? You don't have the income to maintain it, she continued. You don't have savings. You don't have. Mom, I cut in, it was his gift. Melissa rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. It's just a house. Just a house. A life-changing gift. A chance to start over. Mom added, we redirected the purchase into something more useful. Redirected? My skin went cold. What do you mean redirected? They exchanged a glance, a guilty one. And Melissa finally said it. We put it into an investment account for the family. Under our names. It's better this way. I stared at them, unable to breathe. You stole it. Mom scoffed. Don't use that word. It's exactly what you did. Melissa stepped forward. Look. You wouldn't have handled it well, okay? The responsibility, the upkeep, the... I laughed. A small, sharp sound. You decided that for me? Mom's eyes hardened. We made a judgment call. A judgment call. About my life. About my future. About something that wasn't theirs. And that's when I realized the truth. They didn't want me to have stability. They didn't want me to grow. They needed me small, dependent, easy to manage. Because if I ever stood on my own, they would lose control. I felt something shift inside me, the turning point. The moment I stopped pleading for space in my own family. And the moment I chose something else. Action. While Mom and Melissa kept talking, justifying, minimizing, twisting, I stopped listening. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart and the echo of Grandpa's earlier words. You should have the original. They thought I'd just accept this. They thought I'd keep my head down. They thought I'd forget. No. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to fight in their language. I was going to use something they feared more. Documentation. Paper trails. And truth. I'm going to fix this, I said quietly. Mom frowned. Fix what? Everything, I replied. Melissa scoffed. You? Fix something? I didn't answer. I walked past them, opened the door to Grandpa's study, and found him sitting there with his head in his hands. He looked up when he heard me. "Grandpa," I said softly. "I need every document you have." He didn't even ask why. He just nodded. And that was the moment, the silent vow, where I knew this wouldn't be quiet. This wouldn't stay hidden. This was going to unravel them. Because the paperwork told a story uglier than any of us expected. Inside Grandpa's study, he pulled out a thin folder. "This is all I kept," he said. "Your mother insisted she'd handle the rest." I took the folder gently. "Grandpa, I'm going to take care of this. But I need to understand exactly what happened." He nodded. "Ask anything." So I did. Every receipt. Every transaction. Every inspection note. Every signature. And then I saw it. Mom and Melissa had redirected the deed through a trust, not illegal, but deeply misleading, and transferred the property into something called the Jefferson Family Investment Account. Under their names only. Grandpa wasn't listed anywhere. They'd cut him out. And me. Completely. I felt heat rush into my face. "Did you know they put this under their names?" Grandpa looked stunned. "No. They said I'd be part of it. They promised. They didn't just lie to me. They lied to him, the man who trusted them with everything." I breathed slowly, grounding myself. "Okay," I said. "We can undo this." He looked up, hopeful. "How?" "Because," I said calmly, "they can hide the truth from you. They can hide it from me. But they can't hide it from an auditor." His eyebrows lifted. "A what?" "A financial review," I explained. "Every transaction involving your funds can be traced. Every signature verified. Every judgment call exposed." He blinked. "But won't that cause trouble?" "Yes," I said honestly. "For them. But my plan wasn't revenge. Not really. It was correction. Restoration. Truth. And truth has a way of burning without violence." As I gathered the documents, I looked into the camera of my memory, that imaginary listener I always wished I had, and said quietly, "If you're still here, I want to know something. Has your family ever made decisions for you like you weren't even in the room? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories where the quiet ones finally speak up, you can subscribe. I tell these stories because someone out there needs to hear them." Then Grandpa and I took a long breath together. Because the next steps? They were going to shake the whole family. I scheduled it myself. A full family meeting. My grandparents' living room. Sunday at 4 p.m. Mom and Melissa arrived looking irritated, not scared. Dad came too, though he lingered in the doorway like he wished he'd stayed home. When everyone sat, I placed the folder on the coffee table. "This meeting is about the house," I said plainly. Melissa rolled her eyes. "Oh my God." Mom added, "We've already explained." "No," I interrupted, "you justified." "You didn't explain." I opened the folder. Inside were copies of everything. "Grandpa's funds purchased the property in full," I said. "You moved the deed through a trust without including him. Then you transferred ownership into an account under your names." Melissa scoffed. "It was for the family." "No," I said quietly, "it was for control." Dad shifted uncomfortably. Mom crossed her arms. "You're twisting things." I shook my head. "No. I'm revealing them." I slid a document toward them. "This is the authorization Grandpa signed, trusting you to help, not hijack. Mom's face paled. She hadn't expected me to know the language. But here's the thing, you don't need to be a lawyer to see betrayal written in ink. Then I handed them another paper. This is the list of transactions I requested from the bank. Mom stiffened. You what? Auditors will request the same if Grandpa files a complaint. That got their attention. Melissa's mouth fell open. You wouldn't. I already did, I said calmly. I filed it this morning. Grandpa signed the form. The room went dead silent. Mom's voice came out low. Why would you do that? To punish us? No, I said, to get back what you stole. Grandpa looked at me with pride so soft it made my chest ache. And for the first time in my life, Mom looked unsure. Good. Because the truth had only started to land. 3 weeks later, the review came back. Every transaction involving Grandpa's funds was flagged. Mom and Melissa were strongly advised, in that polite but serious way institutions use, to return the property deed to the original grantor immediately. And they did. Not out of remorse, but out of fear. The house was transferred back. Grandpa became the sole owner on record again. Mom tried to play victim. I can't believe you'd do this to your own mother. I replied. You did it to yourself. Melissa tried to guilt-trip me too. You've divided the whole family. No, I said. I just stopped letting you divide me. Grandpa handed me the original keys 2 days later. This time, I took them. We drove together to the little blue house in Schenectady. It was quiet, a little dusty, slightly lonely, like it had been waiting for someone to love it. I walked through every room slowly. The kitchen with the window facing the pine trees. The small living room with good sunlight. The bedroom with the creaky floorboard. The second room that could become a tiny office. My future felt real for the first time. And Grandpa watched me with tears in his eyes. You deserve a place that doesn't make you small, he whispered. I hugged him. For a long time. Because he didn't just give me a house. He gave me a foundation. Mom didn't speak to me for 2 months. Melissa sent a few dramatic texts about loyalty and family unity, but I ignored them. Dad eventually called. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have stepped in. You still can, I replied. And to his credit, he visited the house. Helped me fix the loose hinge on the back door. Sat with me on the porch and said, your grandfather always believed in you. Mom eventually tried again. Not with honesty, with manipulation. I hope you're satisfied, she said over the phone. You've embarrassed me. Mom, I said calmly, this isn't about embarrassment. It's about respect. She didn't answer. Because respect is something she's always expected but never offered. I didn't cut her off. I just set boundaries so firm they could hold up the house themselves. She hated it. But she adjusted. Eventually. Melissa didn't. She still believes she was right. Some people cling to control the way others cling to air. But I've learned something. You can love your family without letting them choke you. I moved into the house one clear morning in March. The air smelled like thawing snow and new beginnings. My first night there, I sat on the living room floor with a blanket, eating cheap takeout and listening to the creak of the settling wood. It didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. Grandpa visited often. He brought groceries, light bulbs, things I didn't know I needed. He'd sit at the kitchen table while I painted walls or unpacked boxes. This place suits you, he said one afternoon, sunlight warming the room. It feels like a story I wasn't supposed to get, I admitted. He shook his head. No. It always belonged to you. Some people just try to rewrite the chapters. I smiled. Because for the first time, I was the one holding the pen. I planted lavender by the front steps. I set up a little desk for freelance work. I breathed easier. I lived. If you've stayed with me through this, here's what I learned. Sometimes the people who claim to protect you are the ones keeping you small. And sometimes the loudest loyalty comes from the quietest hearts. I didn't win by shouting. I didn't destroy anyone. I just chose truth over tradition and self-respect over silence. And I hope, wherever you are, you choose that too. If this story hit home, tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories where justice comes quietly, but completely, I'd love if you subscribed. Thank you for listening. My grandfather always said that stories heal in the right ears. Maybe this one found yours for a reason.